Inter Milan are out. For more on this, let's welcome in Frank Leboeuf, but we've got to start with a former Inter man. Jurgen Kilnsmann is with us. Jurgen, how embarrassing is this for a side, let's not forget, who are 10 points clear at the top of Serie A?
I think it's hugely embarrassing for every Italian football fan, obviously, not only for an Inter fan, because the other clubs, they're struggling the same way at the moment in the Champions League or in European football. So there are so many questions now being discussed in Italy, in Italian football, from all the experts there. How can this happen? How can you lose to a team that, it made itself its name over the last 2.5 years. Bodø Glimt, obviously, in the Conference League, then in the Europa League, they went to the semi-final, and then they beat some big names, and they were outstanding today. I mean, they deserve the biggest compliments, absolutely. I mean, huge compliments. But for a club like Inter, this is really a catastrophe. This is a moment where they have to reflect, what is going on, what they're doing. They have to question every little piece that they're doing. The team was never really convinced of being able to turn it around tonight. I mean, the stadium was sold out. The atmosphere was brilliant, but they never created, clean chances. It was all half chances that they created. Yes, they could have scored maybe here and there by one of these half chances, but they could never kind of step up rhythm-wise. They could never go to another gear, and this is what you need if you have to come back in a European competition. You 2 goals down, you have to go off in a far higher gear and keep the rhythm so high that sooner or later the other team will break down. And we're talking about Bodø Glimt that is in off-season, as I said last week. They haven't even started yet their Norwegian championship. So you have to tire them out. You have to be on their toes from the first second on, but Inter was not capable to go into a higher gear. And so the question really is here, what is going on with Italian football in general? The national team was blown out by Norway in the World Cup qualifying. They have now to go into 2 more qualifying games at the end of March. And the club teams like Juventus lost against CATASTROPHE. They have their game tomorrow. Atalanta, the same thing. But what we saw tonight from Inter was there was not the Inter that you would imagine you could see, an Inter team that is dominating you, can go different rhythms, can go different speeds, has players on the field that can make a difference in a split second. There was not even one player on the field that gave you the feeling that he can turn it around with, I don't know, a surprise shot, a surprise dribbling. You had almost no players that could go 1 against 1 and create something different. I mean, they hammered in the box, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 crosses, and they have these half chances by headers then of their forwards up there. But that's it. And this is not good enough. So it's at the end of the day, it's a lack of quality that we would never ever expect from a club like Inter Milan. So it's going to be some rough nights coming up for the entire club, for the fans, for the players especially. And that, even if you are 10 points ahead in the Italian championship ahead of AC Milan, and you pretty much won the championship already. But this was very, very disappointing.
Straight home for the Inter players tonight, I would imagine.
Yes, I wouldn't imagine you'd venture out at all. Not just tonight, by the way.
I would imagine you sort of swan about the San Siro corporate areas for quite a while to let the fans disperse, because I'm sure there'll be quite a few fans waiting on them. Look, Norwegian football, with 1 or 2 of the teams like Bodø Glimt and the national team, is flourishing at the moment. And Italian football, in a sense, the Italian national team and now this is floundering. There's no doubt that Inter have regressed. Maybe we could say the same about Napoli and 1 or 2 others. But they have regressed. We talked about this with Jurgen a few weeks ago, about the ageing squad that Inter have, about some of the players that they lost. And I think also it's now looking like Simone Inzaghi did a really good job in the organisation of this squad, of utilising the roster and getting to the Champions League final last year. I know they were a little stronger. I know they got walloped in the end by PSG, who were brilliant. But I think it just shows that Inzaghi made a big difference to the organisation and the tempo and the counter-attacking, the defending of this team. And that's been a struggle for them. And they've regressed. They might be top of the Italian Serie A, but they've regressed. And they gave Bodo Glimt a glimmer of hope in both games, and they absolutely snatched it. They were brilliant.
Yeah.
You know, they were absolutely... I said we were talking about during the game, we've got these two huge clubs in Scotland, Celtic and Rangers, right? They call themselves two of the biggest clubs in Europe, and I suppose in some sense the size and that they are. But they've got much bigger budgets than the likes of Bodø, Glimt and one or two others have, but yet... And Stevie said to me, well, it's a cycle, isn't it? They've just managed to have these really good players at one time. And maybe that's the case, like Rosenborg and a few others from smaller countries like Norway have done over the piece. But this is actually, it's not a fluke. They're a very good team.
Yep.
You know, and I get it, they've got a hybrid pitch in Norway and all that, it's difficult to play, but there's not a hybrid pitch in the San Siro, and they played there. They've beaten some other good teams like Atleti, like Dortmund, who was the other one? Man City, they beat. And by the way, that game wasn't a fluke. So yeah, they've been really good. I mean, what a shot in the arm for Norwegian football. But for Italian football, I'm sorry, you know, it is just not the quality that it once was. And although they got to the final last year, I think that was a big tipping of the cap to the manager Inzaghi, who's no longer there. He's in Saudi Arabia. And they've been found wanting this year. That's the honest truth.
Frank, it's interesting, isn't it? We talk, Craig mentioned Celtic Rangers. You can also mention quite a few teams in the Premier League. Bit robotic, yes. Not really entertaining to watch. Yet, Bodo Glimt not only are getting it done, they're getting it done whilst entertaining us.
Exactly. And yes, we can criticize Inter Milan, but you have firstly to talk about Bodo Glimt. Everything I saw today, even when they were under pressure, they were fighting, working all together. They knew what they had to do when they got the ball back. They were going forward. They were 4-5 to go forward. They believed that they could do something. It was amazing to see the spirit, the organization of that team, and all credit goes to the coach and the willingness of the players as well. But even if they had like maybe 30 shots from Inter Milan, I never thought that Bodo Glimt were in danger, and they could punish them. And it happened what I felt, that they were able to finish the action and do the job. The second goal is simply amazing. The assist, the control, the pass. It's world class. Only world class players can do that. But I'm very impressed. I sent a text to Jan to say Bodo Glimt is the best team in the world. And he sent me a heart back. But it's really what it is. I mean, we are all impressed, but it's not. It's a fairy tale, but it's not a surprise anymore. For me, it's not a surprise after what we've seen. And Craig mentioned the team that they already beat, and we cannot say it's only at home with the AstroTurf. No, it's everywhere. They do the job. They're very well organized. I'm very impressed with that team. Not that much by Inter.
Have they set a blueprint, Stevie, as how other teams on this sort of budget should approach these sort of games, or is this like an anomaly?
No, I don't think it's not a blueprint that nobody else knows about. It's just having a group of players at the right time. Craig was talking about it earlier. Having a group of players at the right time, it's a really good mix. They're all in tune with each other. They clearly know each other's game inside out. And when they do get the ball, they go at pace, and the movement's fantastic. You know, the guy on the ball, and you see them streaming forward, there's always 2 and 3 passes, but it's at pace, it's 1 and 2 touch. And then, of course, when you can finish the way they did, and you showed it again tonight, then it's a real handful. But no, teams like that are going to go about it exactly the way they did. Other teams of their size just don't have the quality. I'd have to say the one thing that really surprised me, though, was the way Inter went about it. I sit here week after week complaining that there's not enough balls put in the box in the Premier League. Holy smoke. This was like an English First Division team in the 1980s, where all they did was whip balls in. You've got to be able to mix it up. You know, when you're playing against a side who have got plenty of bodies in and around the box, it's great for them because all they've got to do is challenge. And they showed today that you don't have to win the header. As long as you put a solid challenge in, you put somebody off, which they did, because Inter had a few headers, but none of them really troubled the goalkeeper. Look. So they had no football players in their team. Look at that midfield. There's nobody there that's going to pick a pass or play little 1-2s or do something clever. They never looked like scoring. And the fact that they did score was a bit of a shock.
Yeah. This game was kind of a mirror image of the game that I think Jurgen mentioned was the Norway game in the San Siro against Italy. OK, Italy were chasing their tail, they had to win, but so were Inter tonight. And although the Norwegian national team is picking some players that are playing in the Bundesliga and the Premier League and others, there's still a bulk of them from the Norwegian league. And it kind of was the same, except the national team pulled it off much easier. They allowed the Italians to get onto them. And then as the game wore on, they just started to pick them off as the national team got frustrated. And I think it's very similar here tonight. The more frustrated the Inter got, the more Bodo Glimt felt that they could go and score a second, which they did, and maybe even a third or a fourth. So it's maybe something that's just gone all the way through Norwegian football at the moment, how they're approaching a lot of these big games, where they're very well organised, where they've got a lot of confidence in their own ability. They know they've not got the star quality of some of these other countries and some of these club teams, but they've got a very clear thought process of how they want to go about it. And how they've gone about it against the bigger teams has been really, really good. Well organised, good football when they get the ball, good counter-attacking, and they always work their socks off. They're always working as a team, and they've seen that in this competition. That being said, we can blow smoke up their backside all we want. Bodo Glimt will still be the team that people want in the last 16.
Yeah.
Because people are still saying, this can't continue, and all the big guys will be hoping they'll be getting this Norwegian team, because they are going to be probably still one of the weaker teams on paper, if not the weakest, come the last 16. But I would believe they're not frightened of playing most of the sides that are going to be in the competition.
No, and you mentioned, of course, what happens in the next round. We know already, don't we? It's either going to be Sporting or it's going to be Manchester City. The draw to be made, of course, when this round is complete. Can I ask a stupid question, Stevie?
Go on.
Which would you prefer if you're Bodo Glimt?
I think you prefer Sporting.
You prefer Sporting?
Yeah. Yeah, you ain't going to... No, I'm saying this, but...
You've already... The reason I ask that is you've already beaten Manchester City.
But you're not going to... You don't want Man City. Man City know you inside out now.
OK.
So are they really going to surprise Man City, particularly the way they did in the first leg? That seems incredibly a long shot to me. Manchester City are not going to turn up if they get Bodø Glimt in Norway and produce what they did. They absolutely will not. So if I'm Bodø Glimt, I want Sporting.
Yeah. You agree?
I think probably, but there are some glaring areas in this City side, particularly at the back and in the full-back positions, that I think you can get at. I think the problem with the City game, they've only played them in Norway, right? Mm-hmm. Now, as the two-legged affair would be, if, depending on where the first leg was, if it was at the Etihad, if they could get through that relatively unscathed, I really think they'd fancy their chances back in Norway against this City side. That being said, there's no doubt Sporting are the weaker of the two teams.
Yeah.
But City are not, it's not exact, you wouldn't be quaking in your boots at getting them. The big worry would be the away game. The away game. You cannot get destroyed. And City, of course, for all their issues at the back and with centre-halves and full-backs, they could put 4 or 5 on you in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
So that would be the concern if you got City from Bodo Glimt's point of view, depending on obviously where the first leg was. But yeah, I think Sporting, but they wouldn't be frightened of City, I wouldn't imagine.
Jurgen, what do you think?
Well, I think definitely, no matter who they play, nobody will underestimate Bodo Glimt anymore. I mean, it doesn't exist anymore. It doesn't matter if you're Manchester City or Sporting, you now take Bodo Glimt so serious, because they have proven it now over 2 or 3 years, that they are a very, very good team, that they are competitive, that they can handle big, big names. So now going forward, Bodo Glimt is absolutely no surprise anymore. No, they're to be taken seriously by everyone, and so is Norway. And I look at their progression over the last 10, 12 years, a little bit like, in the late 80s, early 90s, so more and more Croatia came into the picture, obviously after the Yugoslavian war and the split of all the Yugoslavian nations. Then Croatia came out with the most talent, with the most determination to break through on the world stage. And look where they are now. They are among the top 4 in the world when they go to a World Cup or European Championship. And I see Norway is on the rise. Norway is to be taken very, very seriously going forward. I mean, when we watch, obviously, have another Champions League game with Atletico Madrid, beating Bruges 4-1, 3 goals, Sorloth, Norwegian. You know, so I mean, it's not only a few individual players that make the difference for these Norwegian teams. It's a whole. It's teams. It's teams. So they've done a lot of good things over the last years. You know what they've done exactly, I don't know. It would be needed to ask them a bit deeper. But they are no surprise anymore. And if I was now, obviously Manchester City or Sporting, I mean, I go in there and I know I got to give everything I have to beat Bodø Glimt.
But was it this? I might be wrong. Producer knows because it was Tottenham. Was it semi-final of Europa League or quarter-final last year?
Yes, it was a semi-final. Yeah.
Semi-final of Europa League. Okay, it's clearly not as strong, and they lost. So it's been a bit of an upward curve for them. But this has taken it to another level. Getting into this stage of the Champions League. But you throw a bunch of these players in with Sorloth and Haaland, and Strand Larsen's just moved for 45 million. That was a bit of a head scratcher. But you can chuck him in as well before you get to Odegaard and Norgard and everybody else. They are producing some good teams, and they're producing some really good players at the moment.